Hello and welcome back to the Bright Light Wellness YouTube channel and the Healing with Homeopathy Substack. Today I want to chat with you about the remedy Belladonna. What a beautiful, beautiful remedy. Such an important one to have, and I think everybody should have this remedy in their home kit in a 30C and a 200C is my recommendation because it is an incredible remedy for acute situations. Chronically, we'll chat about it a little bit, but I would really seek a homeopath before using this chronically. But there are indications for it chronically, but acutely, this remedy is really important to have in your kit. Okay. Belladonna is one of our best remedies for acutes, and you want to think of it in acutes that come on very suddenly and rapidly, like aconite, which we will talk about later on as well. But these symptoms come on rapidly, and very strongly and very intensely. Belladonna is an intense remedy. It's made from a deadly nightshade, actually. And it's a plant remedy. It's a nightshade plant. And it is a lot of remedies would be toxic to our bodies in the crude form. People will look it up and say, "Oh, I can't take belladonna." But remember, you're taking it in an energetic form. There is no crude form left of the remedy. It is an energetic imprint of the remedy, or of the substance, I should say. So when it comes to belladonna and acute, the symptoms are going to be intense, a violent onset. They were fine and now all of a sudden they're not. Okay. It's violent and intense. There is redness, there is heat, there is fever, high fever, 102, 103, 104, 105, high fever. Pupils are actually dilated. In fact, women used to use belladonna in their eyes in the old days to dilate the pupils because that was like a form of beauty. And belladonna actually means beautiful, the Bella, beauty, right? Um, anyway, that's one of the provings of belladonna, but their pupils might be dilated. They're going to have very throbbing pains, right? They might have a throbbing pain, a throbbing headache from the sun. Belladonna can be worse than the sun. They can have a hot head. Symptoms can come and go like a storm. They're very intense. They're going to have, this is a good keynote, they're going to have a hot head, hot body, but their hands and feet will be cold. Their extremities will be cold. The pain is going to be intense. They're likely going to be thirstless. They might crave lemonade. Don't always see this, but that is a possibility. They're going to have flushes of heat. The cheeks will be rosy red, okay? There could be convulsions and twitches and jerking. That's probably more like in your chronic, really dysregulated nervous systems, autism cases, things like that. But that could happen actually in acute. I just don't see that as often. Um, my niece needed this remedy. I was busy. It was Christmas Day. They were over. She had a fever. She was so hot, dilated pupils, cold extremities, not thirsty, very lethargic. I wound up giving this remedy, and it was like she turned around in minutes. So belladonna will come in and out just as fast. So it's very intense very quickly, and it'll heal very quickly also, which is kind of cool. They can go to a state of delirium with the fever. So this is a remedy for delirium, like meningitis, things like that. When you probably want to see a homeopath, but you could also try a 200C just to see how it goes. Um, there could be with this delirium, there could be, extreme fevers with rage, anger, biting, pulling their hair, um, angel when well, devil when sick kind of situation. That is not something I always see necessarily. You don't have to have that. Um, it, it can be caused by many things, belladonna. One thing it can be caused by is sunstroke. They are worse. They can get sunstroke and they can get these symptoms from sunstroke. Um, they are worse by light, noise, motion, jarring, being touched. Those things all make belladonna worse in the acute situation. So whether it's an ear infection or something like that, or a headache, they're not going to be going jarred, motion, touch. They're not going to want you to bother them. Um, this remedy can also be worse from getting haircuts, which is such an interesting symptom. I actually had a case of that one time where they didn't like their haircut and they were worse from getting haircuts. Sunstroke can cause it. Ill effects from haircuts can cause it. Winds or drafts and also getting wet can cause it. They are better with cold applications. They're very hot, so cold is going to help them feel better. Better with pressure. They like a lot of pressure. So a belladonna headache, they might wrap the head really tightly. They'll be better from pressure. Um, might be better lying propped up. They're gonna have high fevers, dilated pupils, pulsing, throbbing, bursting, fullness and pain. Again, better with, that kind of resting, no noise, dark room, no motion, like quiet if they have a headache, worse from sunstroke. Um, in the fever, like I said, they could have dilated pupils, they could have hallucinations, if it gets really high. They could have convulsions from fever. If it gets really high, they can be hitting and biting and anger and rage, lack of thirst, like I said before. Um, yeah, so they could be good for so many different acutes. Like they're literally any acute belladonna could be good for sore throat with scarlet fever, strep throat, tonsillitis, high fever. There's always going to be a fever with a belladonna acute. It's always going to be red, hot, high, and a fever. Hindered by worse by swallowing, throbbing pain, lack of thirst in the acute. Um, it can be good for mastitis, worse on the right side. Belladonna is a right-sided remedy, so the sore throat's going to be on the right side. The mastitis will be on the right side. The headaches might be worse on the right side. Whatever they have, the ear infection is going to be on the right side. It's a right-sided remedy, so you will likely see ailments on the right side. It's a good remedy for period pains as well. It's a good remedy for ear infections. They're hot, sensitive, painful ears, throbbing ears, stitching pains may spread down into the neck or face. I mean, it is good for many things. I'm just looking at my other book and seeing what else is important. It's good for influenza. I mean, scarlet fever, appendicitis. Um, it could be good for a cystitis, a bladder infection. You just want to see this high fever, this red hot high. I mean, you're going to think of cantharis first with a bladder infection. We'll do some work on bladder infections, but belladonna is there. Um, everything's going to be worse from a jar. Everything's going to be worse. Everything's going to be worse on the right side. So make sure you have that. It's going to be red. There's going to be a fever. It's going to be hot. There's going to be that kind of picture, this intense picture where it came on suddenly. Um, Ear infections that are right-sided with aggravation at night, in bed, intense pain, what makes a child scream, becoming frantic, bright red membranes, marked swelling, right? Um, there could be right-sided pneumonia. I mean, really any kind of inflammation, you can think of belladonna as if it's intense. It comes out a lot of times belladonna's aggravation is at 3 p.m. So you might notice a worsening of symptoms at 3 p.m. or this general aggravation of coming on at 3 p.m. So that could be something to think about. Okay, I kind of covered it in the acute situation. So now let's look at belladonna in more of the chronic situation. These are pretty vital and robust people. They're usually quite balanced, but they can have sudden explosion of anger. There can be delirium, mania. Um, they can have like superhumanly increased strength with this like violence and deliria. They can have hallucinations, especially during fevers, right? They can have fear of dogs. They grind their teeth likely. Their nervous system is very out of balance. They can have desire to strike or to bite or to pull hair or to spit. Um, you can think of this remedy in cases of like meningitis. My father-in-law had an extreme case of meningitis. If I would have been a homeopath at this time, I would have given it to him. But in a case of meningitis, you can think of this where the person, he had this high fever and he was hallucinating. He was actually talking to other people. Like he was talking in another language to other people. And he was like, if you tried to restrain him, he would bite, he would strike you, he would try to hit you. Like belladonna or stramonium or haciamos, probably not haciamos. You would think of stramonium or belladonna, but they're all in the same family. They're all in this nightshade family. They're all these delirium kind of remedies, like that are good for meningitis or these kind of like really deep, um, impacting the brain. This is why we also think of these for autism cases, belladonna, haciamos, stramonium, these remedies, because it's deeply affecting the brain. Um, Anyway, just seeing what else. I mentioned the 3 p.m. aggravation. They're warm except for the hands and the feet. Better by pains, better by pressure, but worse from a jar in motion. They can have hormonal issues, so they can be aggravated around their period. They're mostly right-sided complaints. They can have hot flashes or hot flushes of heat. They can get convulsions, especially febrile convulsions. So you want to think of this remedy if your child is, I have my nephew, the one with the one I mentioned before about the roost he used to have fevers that would end in epilepsy. So they would be always so fearful of letting his fever get high because he would get epilepsy. Well, this is a remedy that you'd want to consider for this. It's a great remedy for that. They have twitching and jerking, intense heat in the affected parts, worse from light noise touch, very aggravated nervous system, high blood pressure, one of the main remedies as well as lachesis, which I will talk about eventually. It's good for acute and chronic vertigo, worse turning the head in bed, worse bending forward, ringing in the ears. I mean, it's just so many things. It's good for migraines, especially on the right side that are worse, light, noise, jar, motion, menses, sun. Pains that were better with cold applications, lying in the dark. Um, you know, The pains are described like a knife. I'm just reading as I'm talking to you. The pains are described like a knife. Um, can be sinus pains. There's can be so many things. Like I said, ear infections, worse on right side, worse at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, fever that comes on at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, worse at night in the bed, throbbing. Craving lemonade, craving sour things. They like sour foods. They can be thirstless. They like vegetables and sweets, but they can also be adverse vegetables, fish, fat, fruit, beans. Uh, they can be scared of monsters in the dark. This is a good remedy for behavioral problems in children. There can be sudden outbursts. There can be nightmares. Um, there can be this kind of Jekyll and Hyde kind of behavior with these kind of children. They can literally be Jekyll and Hyde. This is making me think of myself and my son in a little bit of ways, because I always call him a Jekyll and Hyde, and I always think of Metarinum, but actually Belladonna is not one I've actually thought of in acute situations. He just doesn't get these intense things like this. Maybe in that possibly. There's a relationship between calcarb and belladonna. He has a strong calcarb constitution as well as a pulsatilla constitution, but there's a relationship between calcarb and belladonna as well. And sometimes the calcarb constitution can go into belladonna acutes. So that's just an interesting side note for you to know about. Um, so yeah, their pupils can dilate. They can have lots of energy. They can be violent and shouting. They're red and hot. They are noisy kids. There can be slamming and banging heads. You can see head banging when they're playing or banging their heads somewhere. They like video games and things like that as kids. There can be a lot of talking and singing in Belladonna. They love to talk a lot and sing a lot. They like singing. So they might sing to themselves or laugh to themselves. They might like to set things on fire. Um, It's an intense, intense remedy. Cold hands and feet, but hot face. They like to sleep on the abdomen. They might dream of falling, which is also like Thuya and Ignatia, where they dream of falling often. There's so many things it can be good for. Back pain with herniated disc aggravated from motion or jarring. Low back pain extending upward. I mean, it could just go on and on. Belladonna is a very big, big remedy. In cases for you guys, I mean, it's a great remedy for like autism or behavioral disorders or hormonal imbalances that have to do with behavioral disorders. You are going to not likely use belladonna in that form. You will likely use belladonna for yourself or for your children in the cases where they have high sudden fevers, ear infections. They might have sudden. Um, Sudden intense symptoms. That's where you're going to use belladonna, okay? And sudden intense inflammation. So as you see, I have a little guy up, so I got to go take care of that. But stay tuned for more information on acutes. Please join my Healing with Homeopathy Substack to learn more about acute remedies to support you and your family. And remember, treating acutes with homeopathy prevent chronic disease later on in life. And belladonna is one I absolutely recommend, especially high fevers, especially if there's epilepsy after fevers. Think of it in a 200C in that situation. Have it in 200C, have it in a 30C, and use it in these intense situations. And remember, it's a right-sided remedy, so think about that as well. And yeah, I hope that's been helpful. I hope it's been supportive. I will definitely do a talk about autism and a talk about Hashimoto's and stramonium as well, in that they are in the same kind of family. They can have these delirium things, the meningitis, things kind of things like that. So yeah, it's a really, really good one to have on hand. Um, and yeah, join the Substack to learn more and check out my Acute courses if you want to learn more on your own, start learning more now. All right, have a good one. Hey, Mom.